And if you ever recall the early days of when we started using ringtones on our cell phones, well, Elie was the man behind it and behind many different successful mobile technologies, which of course later on culminated with the creation of Anghami in 2012. And the rest is history, as they say. Today, Anghami employs more than 100 staff, around 120. And of course, the big news recently is the listing on NASDAQ. Anghami would actually be the first Arab technology company to do that. Here it's worth noting, معلي ما تزعلوا, LAU did not wait for the NASDAQ listing to honor Elie and his achievements. In fact, he received the LAU Achievement Award in 2019, and he was honored in front of fellow alumni and friends. Today, we will tap into technology, startups, management, leadership, music, and into Elie, the person himself. Elie Habib, whoever follows your career can clearly see that there's a trend there. You were always one step ahead with your ideas. So tell me, first of all, is an entrepreneur born or he is made?
First, hello everyone. Thankful for the invite. Thankful for the opportunity to talk to my alma mater. And thank you, Mr. Saad. Thank you, Mr. Sharbil, and thank you, Abdullah, for originally inviting me and honoring me a few years ago. Uh, so basically, I think as far as I remember, I mean, I wanted to build, right? I mean, I'm a builder. I mean, I just happened to be born in a time when in a time of war in Lebanon, and I was born in '73. I had to move, and my parents wanted me to, they were afraid, I was the firstborn, so I had to stay at home more than the kids not going to play. I mean, and that to get me to stay at home, they got me a computer. It was between, I mean, I think I was around between 8 and 9 years old. That small decision back in the days, and I'm talking about 82, that time defined me because I mean, you get someone a box that creates stuff, and he's actually he fall in love with it. Clearly, I was born, or I was made because of that particular decision, and everything ensued because probably a lot of curiosity was available in me, and I got that box. So whatever it is, maybe the war got me to be who I am, but at the same time, curiosity of me trying to innovate, trying to create something. I don't know whether I was like ahead of the curve or not, but I always wanted to build something, create something, and that keeps me thinking of what am I going to do. And I guess over time, thank you for the intro. You mentioned a lot of things that I've built, but the first thing that I've built was a product, was a software for an accounting and stock company, and I was building it during my NAU years. And at the time, there was no cellular phone. I remember going down in the break between courses to, I don't remember the name of the place, but the place that photocopied stuff, right? I mean, maybe it became Malik, but it wasn't Malik at my days. I mean, simply to call and check if the company that I built software for was running fine, or if they had any issues. I always wanted to be a builder, and I think this is exactly what today in Lebanon, this is exactly what still, we're all supposed to do, build, innovate and create. And thankfully in 2021, right, you can build anything you want way cheaper than before, and the opportunities are really endless. So I can only be jealous of anyone who want to create something right now, because in my days it was way harder to build anything and to learn anything. um, I hope I answered.
Of course. Eli, many people here are really interested and they cannot wait to listen to the Anghami story. Can you share with us highlights from the past, from 2012 till now? Can you tell the story the way you like to tell it? How did it start? Major milestones, major successes? I leave the floor to you to tell us the story your way.
Sure. Thank you. I'm gonna share a few musing of mine. It's our story hasn't finished yet, right? We're still early days. I mean, in my opinion, it's early days because we've had certain opportunities. But I'm going to talk musings about stuff that we've gone through and try to, not just tell my story, but how you can benefit and what is it for people, for the listeners and that are following up right now. So it all started on a whim. Literally, it was a ski trip. Me and Eddie, I think the story is quite known, but the thing is simple. We wanted to listen to music. We wanted the opportunity to create something. We were looking to build something. We were in the mindset of building, but we were on the mindset simply at the time of doing something that we needed, we felt was important, we felt made sense. Did we actually think it's going to be big and we're going to have millions of people using it? No, no. We thought it matters. We thought there was an opportunity and we wanted to explore that opportunity. And basically, we were bored. Basically, we were literally, I mean, I'm highlighting, I wish I can highlight the word bored because boredom is very important. Boredom allows you to think and create. If you're actually always constantly looking at things and I don't know, maybe flipping your Instagram, you're not going to get bored. You're not going to get time to think. At that time, that we did not have that shortage of attention. We really were on a trip whereby we're discussing something new to build. And it just happened that Eddie had an iPod with old music in it and he had forgot to put new music. It was very complicated to keep syncing and going to pirate sites and all of that to download music. I'm talking, this story is in early 2010, late 2010, something like that. So it was different days. We had not much money to back up our story. That's a very important thing, but because at the time we needed money, right? I mean, which is now is different. You can build something with way cheaper. At the time, and not just way cheaper, you had the opportunity, right? Right now, you can raise money from venture capital, VC funding, and seed funding, and I don't know, angels and so many things. At the time, we literally invested 200K from my pocket, me and Eddie, my money and our money actually, Eddie and me, and then we took a loan. We took a $400,000 loan to start building the company. That's something that people don't hear about right now, right? Because they want to raise money from external sources. And then, we were just convinced because, we people love music. I mean, it would make sense, right? It makes sense for us, and then it should make sense to others. That that is a mistake, right? I mean, in our case, it worked, but it's not just because you're convinced that it work. You need to build, you need to work hard and not just build and it will happen, that will come. You need to entice people to come. We were just at a crossroad, honestly. There was an untapped opportunity that we just ran into. A lot of it played was luck. I mean, we have to admit that some luck played. If we were late by 6 months, Anghami would not have happened because when we were starting, someone else was starting the same venture, but they had missed a few elements, and we benefit out of them. And we started small, really small. We focused on talent. So the first uh, major problem that I faced, that we faced at the time, was getting talent, right? I mean, we remember it's 2011. We want to build a mobile service, mobile app, and nobody knows. Nobody has 6 months experience in building mobile apps. iPhone and Android was just coming up. I mean, and we had to actually tap into raw talent, right? Like university students. So we got, after making many mistakes at the beginning, we got university students that are smart, that have absolutely no experience, and we taught them. We thought that's the best thing is to actually focus on talent, teach them, and put small goals, right? Not perfect stuff. Something that might not make sense in the grand scheme of things, whereby you're expected to build something that is perfect, expected to build something that would scale, that would work. No, for us, we wanted to build something that would make sense sense to a small group of people, and then we would actually iterate from it. And that is a great lesson because speed is important. If you aim for perfection, you're never going to launch, right? We want to be scrappy and we want to iterate. We're going to be better the next day. And every day we want it to be better than the other. We deeply believe that, talent and starting and iterating is a forte that we wanted to benefit from, because at the time there was nobody that could do better than us in the region, because nobody was focused on music, nobody was focused on mobile, everybody was doing web and thinking that web was the growth. That is one of the problems that the competitor that launched at the same time focused on. We realized that it was about building a sustainable business, and mobile would create that for us. We run after like a big idea, right? I mean, how can I actually build something that people would use and people would pay for? And how do that? I mean, we just made sure that we would focus on growing the business part of it, right? My background, as Sharbil probably highlighted it earlier, I mean, I'm an engineer. I build, I write code. I don't write anymore. I don't have time anymore. But, I started the original version of Anghami, the backend, I wrote it. So we really learned that ego kills businesses, right? Because people wanted to actually shine themselves rather than shine the entire business. And we understood that it was binary. The company would actually succeed or the company would fail entirely. So for that, ego had no space, and anybody who would actually, had more ego in the company could not actually remain. And to illustrate ego, you'd have to really, as a founder, understand that you are equal to everybody else, and your ideas are going to be actually discussed like everybody else. That is a great lesson. So if whenever I had an idea, I would actually pitch it to the team and I tell them, fight me for it, validate that, does it make sense? I mean, my idea would have to be run and to be validated, and same thing like anybody else. Otherwise, I would have a different way, and my ego would actually grow because I'm succeeding. So by actually putting everything to the test, failures taught us that, I might have a great idea but that it would fail and that I would learn the next time around. So we learned that to build, you had to, build by learning and learn by building, and you will realize that you will be failing while doing that, and failure is part of learning, part of growing. So and as a founder, I would understand that, yes, even if I'm leading the company, I'm leading a team, I'm leading them with ideas, I'm leading them with the what where we're going. I mean, what are we building? But the why, the if nothing would make sense if I wouldn't put the why in perspective. So every time we want to do something, we would have to explain to the team, why are we building this? And if you put the why at there, then the team would actually take the what and do better with it, because they would take your ideas and they will build on top of it. Hence why in Anghami, and this is why I always say it everywhere, take my idea and do better than me. And that is actually how people would actually pay it forward internally in the company. And now externally, I'm paying it forward so that people would take our lessons and do better than us based on the lessons that we did. So as I said, we had to build by learning, and that is very important. Is like you can do anything if you actually open up to the opportunity that, I don't know how to do that, and I'm going to look and I'm going to read. And books came up to be one of the best thing that I personally enjoyed. One thing that was important is like, I never was employed in a company. I was never. True, I worked at Get for Less at one point, but I was like, an external party, and I built it, and I built so the many companies that Sharbi mentioned, and previously also other companies. But I was never employed. I was only on my own. So books came up to be the biggest, filled the biggest gap for us to teach us how to learn by asking the right questions, and tapping into the collective intelligence of book writers who actually gave us clues, who actually told us how to build businesses, how to actually work to cultivate, to create the right culture in the company, and to actually create talent density. Talent density is essential because you actually put in smart people. Hopefully, they'll be smarter than you, right? I mean, you don't want to be the smartest person in the company. You want to have people who actually focused on the different problems, who are smarter than you, who can answer questions that you ask. That's how we build. And yes, passion and persistence pays, because it's a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster. So when someone tells me, "Oh wow, you're successful and everything," it's like, no, one, I have no ego. So basically, no, we're not successful yet. We're still building and we're still growing. We're still happy uh, because we're building, and we have the passion. We have the passion and we have the persistence that despite many failures that we had, many problems that we got along the road, despite, being in Lebanon, which de facto, over the past few years was like not really something that would actually create, a proper environment for us to grow. Despite all of that, we grew in the darkest times for our company, which was when competition came and grew in 2018, and then when the problems in Lebanon, and over the past 2 years we grew over 80%. Despite all of those problems, which just proves that we focused on what we're doing good, and we had the right mottos. Iteration beats perfection every single day. We're very much anti-perfection. We're very much anti a lot of things that we were taught when we were young, right? I mean, be an A student. For us, we knew we're not going to be an A up the first day, but we're going to be better every day, every day, every day. And we tested. That's why we always say, in God we trust, and the rest we test, because the point is we want to test everything. We want to test ideas. We want to test business plans. We want to test concept. We want to test colors. Everything has to be tested. That way we're all equal in the company. And that way we actually everybody can put the right foot forward, the right idea forward, and the best idea would actually win, which is great. And we kept on learning. I mean, and I'm sharing learnings with you today. Startups are not built on tech. Even though if I'm a tech person, I'm a CTO and everything, I've learned that startups are built on innovation and business sense. Innovation in so many small ideas sometimes, right? Innovation does not need to be like that Nobel thingy, right? I mean, innovation would be sometimes take a small business idea and iterate on it and actually make it better. Create revenue for artists, for instance, is a small innovation. Create innovation for the users, whereby when we launched Anghami, we said we wanted to pirate the pirates. That was our idea. If you can actually make an app that have a nice user interface, great sound, free, uh, complete in terms of music, that might sound simple right now, but in hindsight, that took years of creation. And by iterating on another idea and others that came before us, right? Because clearly we're not supposed to reinvent the wheel. So every company copies something from others, which is fair, because you want to copy an idea and you want to build upon that idea and do better. That's how most artists do. They copy some stuff and create on others and iterate. Example, Uber. They just took a taxi concept and just iterated and make it digital. It's clearly they didn't invent taxis, they just iterated on it. And I hope you can figure out other ideas that really we needed to iterate upon. And we're seeing those innovation bit by bit, and COVID created a lot of those innovation that made sense for us. One thing that we understood, we needed to iterate and to build solutions for users. Basically, not just one app. We created apps for the iPhone, the Android, the tablet, the TV, the watch, the car, the speakers, and we're creating so many things for users. But we also had to iterate for artists, create reasons for them to come to Anghami, to be able to upload their music directly because there are no big labels, to be able to understand how much money they're making and what is driving their revenue and why they should actually put on Anghami and what would make sense for them. We also iterated to create platforms for advertisers because we knew that some people would pay for Anghami, some people will not pay for Anghami. So we needed to actually make it sense for our business and create business sense from the beginning so that we would generate revenue. So we would not actually end up taking money more and more and more from VC, but because instead of taking 1 million from a VC, I prefer to take $1 from 1 million of our users. Our users, are actually the foundation of how we can grow a business. And we realized that, in terms of innovation, we have to tap into payment methods like telcos. We created the first network of 36 telecom operators connected to Anghami. Nobody has that across the Arab world. And most people pay us via telcos than any other way, obviously, because that's the Middle East, that's our localization. That's whereby we understood that payment by credit card is not going to fly, for instance. We also continuously create innovation, like the latest feature that part of it we launched, it's available and that we're launching right now, which is the live radio, which allows people to to listen to music all together, but actually talk also on top of the music and create radio experience, which is like, the old famous radio that we all grew up and learn and listen to it. And you probably, I entertained me on the way to the university with the drive time shows. Anybody can create his own drive time or whatever, live radio in Anghami uh, listen to music, but talk about the music and create interactions. And all of that has been innovated like everything we've done in Anghami in-house in Lebanon, mostly with like 90% Lebanese people have built Anghami, and we're very proud of that. Even though we're moving to, we moved our HQ to Abu Dhabi, our office in Beirut, where I am right now, will always remain, and we're always going to be growing our team over here. That team, that is key. This is, a picture from before Corona times, clearly. Right now, we're around 138 people in Anghami between Beirut, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Cairo, and Riyadh, and Morocco. But we're actually keep on growing. That is a picture whereby, I know that team is key because the more we empower the team, the more we gave to the team, the more we show them success to the team, show them how they're contributing to our success, we got better by challenging them, by actually get them to do more for us and to empower them and to really get, the best out of people. And that is whereby I realized that, as a technical founder, I can actually, focus on psychology and get much more from my team. And that's probably the key element of having a team growing, not just, me as a founder, but that team will get to work much more than me and generate much more resources for us and success for us. And I'm very thankful for that bunch of believers who believed in us for the past 9 years to build an Anghami. One thing that I want to highlight is unlearning. We early on we realized that unlearning is much harder than learning. That's why we started with people who, in the most of the cases, are way younger than me. I'm one of the oldest people in Anghami. Those people, the young people, the ones that hopefully some of you might be in that particular age group, tend to learn much faster because they don't have a lot of baggage to unlearn. And that is really critical element of this century, whereby people need to learn much more. And people who have learned older ways might be harder for them. So I'm thankful that I'm still part of the team, even though I had to unlearn a lot and learn much more. And that is critical for us. Um, and now over 70 million people downloaded Anghami, and that, I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the milestone that we've done because we simply gave people something that they craved, not they needed, they craved. That is very important. We did not offer to them something that they might use or might they not use, but we offered them an alternative to something that was inexistent in the region and that people ended up really, using and adapting. And for us, that is what part of the lessons. Don't build something that some people might, use, and some people might decide, no, that particular segment might not be important. for us, we know that we still can grow tremendously in the region and beyond the region. And that is what we're doing in the next stages. We will be growing much more in the Arab world, but we will be growing on the diaspora. We will be going to the entire Arab, people who are outside the Middle East. And we think that we still have a lot of opportunities for growth. We proved it as you Sharbil said earlier. Not we just grown into a lot of places, but we actually went to that place. Yeah, we went to the NASDAQ. Will be IPO. We listed. Will be actually quoted on the NASDAQ under ANGH in the third week of June. All of that, makes it clear that impossible is possible. A small team from Beirut can start, can grow, can iterate, can get to a market that makes sense. And we're now on starting our chapter two. After the IPO, we're going to be obviously doubling down on growth, doubling down on our team, doubling down on content creation, and doubling down on innovation, much more of that, and really investing into again, our youth, and going back to what we're doing best as the core of the music in the region and the core of the music in the Arab world. I think the opportunities are clear for us, that growth is there, growth will happen, and we will keep on growing. And we're targeting to be a $1 billion company in the next 3 years. That is, our goal, and that's why for me we're still on chapter two. There's still a lot to be done. I hope I hope I told you a story that you did not get bored from, and you probably learned some. And I'll really looking forward to listening to your questions, and hopefully you'll take our ideas. You'll see what we've done, and you'll do way better than us. And I'll be in a few years listening to a lot of other Lebanese people who have been inspiring again after us, better than us.
Eli, that was amazing, very enlightening and inspiring, actually. I took some notes. I have seven inspiring notes I can apply daily. Uh, I want to ask a few questions about competition,
Please.
especially now. We have Deezer in the region, we have Spotify. What sets you apart from competition? What are your competitive advantage? And if you can also tell me about the Rotana breakup, if I may call it breakup, how did it affect you, and are you looking to get back with them, if anything?
So let me answer both questions in one. Clearly, we've had a lot of ups and downs, and that's a roller coaster. That's what people think it's a overnight success after 10,000 overnights, whatever. Um, the point is, despite the competition, despite the Rotana, we grew the biggest since 2018. So actually, Anghami grew post competition, post Rotana, much more than before. What does that tell you? That we actually built the right elements to grow of growth, because we became embedded in the region. We became, during the early years when we were creating Anghami, we knew how to localize Anghami. We knew what to work and where to work, and what would actually end up being our competitive advantage. And clearly, we would be better off if there was no competition. Theoretically, we'd be better off if we had everything that we wanted. But because there was competition, we actually managed to grow because we challenged each other in the company. We challenged each other to actually take the work that we've done, the competitive advantages, like the telco integrations, like the localization, like the platform for artists that we built for advertising, all of that, and build on top of it and create more innovation. So today, Anghami as a product has more innovations than other competitors combined. Why? Because we're focused on our region. We understand the competitive nature of the region and how people in the region are social by nature. That's why products that we create for them, the social element that is available in Anghami, that is much different than every other app, keeps us growing. That's why when we actually invest in creating content, which no other company does, and Anghami so far has created over 150 songs, and most of the time we did not even say that we created those songs, because we understood that if we can experiment and validate that content creation is important, because after all, 1% of the Arabic songs, 1% of the songs available in Anghami are in Arabic only, while 50% of the consumption is in Arabic. We realized that, Arabic content is needed, but not just old content, new content, people that, that artists that users, that young users would relate with. And for us, a competition taught us that if we actually focus properly, the most important competition for us is not what you mentioned, but it's actually piracy. Piracy is the first competition, the second competition, the third competition, because after all, people that are using legal streaming services are a small fraction of the market at large. And even though that competition, when they came, they started attacking our users and trying to get our users, we totally realize that the market at large is way bigger than just our users, and we can still have a lot to do and we lot to grow. So, uh, thankfully, I mean, competition taught us a lot and got us to grow. If competition did not came, I'm pretty sure we would still be growing organically and we would not be, challenging ourselves. So all in all, I mean, I'm thankful.
So innovation is the keyword here. Even if there is competition,
Exactly.
innovating.
Innovation and being embedded, being local. What is local? Local is not just writing from right to left in an app, for instance. But if you actually go to other apps, and just an example, search Kulsum, just the one that's behind me. Search for her. Most of the songs for Kulsum would be written in Latin, right? And you wouldn't be able to search for them like if you write in Arabic. In some songs, for instance, in our case in Anghami, you can search for songs if you write them in Latin, if you write them in Arabic, or if you write them in Said Al style Arabized language, you would still find the songs, because we understood how people in our region would actually react to actually search. As an example, I can talk about a lot of samples, but that's one of them.
Eli, you talk about localization and growth at the same time. Uh, the brand name Anghami being in Arabic, does it affect your international growth plans that you have, or you're just focused on the niche market that is the MENA region speaking Arabic countries?
No, no, not at all. I mean, clearly, let's be honest. At the beginning, when Anghami as a name played a double-edged sword. It helped us in a lot of places because it showed that we're local. But some people, for instance, thought that because we're Anghami, we don't have international music, for instance. Whereby we do have 57 million songs, and most of the music we have is international. Because obviously, content creation in the Arab world is not that elaborate, and people still, don't create as much content as in the international world. But in our intention in our growth plans, we're not really targeting to go to New York to target people in Queens who are listening to Drake. We want to go to the Arabic diaspora, which is over 500 million people in the world, and that actually still listen to Arabic music, still get inspired with Arabic music, and the Arabic music of the get them to simply smell back home. So there's a lot of opportunity in catering to a niche of 500 million people in the world. I mean, that's a great niche to to focus on and work across.
Okay. Eli, I have a tons of questions, but the audience as well have some. So I will pause, I will shut up, and I will read some from the audience. Most of them are looking for input and advice. So Karel is asking, what do you think the next big thing is? Maybe she's looking into a startup.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, the next big there is no next big thing. There are many next big things. But if I was starting something from scratch today, I would actually look at two sectors, fintech and health tech. And I definitely think there's a lot of potential to be done over there. I mean, fintech is clearly ripe for innovation. Simply, being in the, being from Lebanon and understanding how banks work right now in Lebanon, you would realize that there's a lot of opportunity for fintech. But then again, all over the world, you do have fintech innovations that are simply waiting. And if I don't know whether I'm going to have the opportunity to, you know, when I will have an opportunity to build another company, because I'm sure I'm going to do one eventually. I mean, definitely fintech is going to be on the top of my list.
Interesting. There are questions regarding your team. I even noticed something while I was going through your website, and this is something for all the audience. I was really shocked with this. Anghami has put all the team members, 100 plus persons, by alphabetical order without notice for positions and titles and hierarchies. Does this
No
reflect your?
ego.
It reflects.
Exactly.
There's a message
it's
there.
it's part yeah, there's a message there. It's part of our culture. It's part of our culture. And if we start arranging everything in hierarchy is will be eventually needed. I mean, is there right now. It's not that we don't have one, but we treat everybody equally. It's not like because I'm the co-founder that I'm actually get better treatment than others. No, I mean, in terms of ideas, every idea is just it's worse is worth as much as the other one. It's not my idea is has much more value. The best idea will eventually win. And as a company, we've really, worked across to make sure that we keep repeating this. This is part of our culture. This is part of who we are, and we've built. It's. I'm reading a question right now. We've built Anghami in Lebanon, in Beirut. To what extent did we use, Lebanese talent? To the extent of over 90%, right? And I'm sure it might have been more than 90% in the engineering sector, but right now, I mean, 9 over 10 people in Anghami are Lebanese, so I think that pretty much answered the question.
Are you still recruiting Lebanese?
I'm always recruiting Lebanese. Uh, I think we've recruited maybe 15 Lebanese in the past 2 months, or a bit more. But excuse me if my memory is wrong. But I mean, I probably at least 15, if not even more. And uh, subconsciously, I don't favor anybody, right? I mean, where they come from. Uh, one person from the original builders of Anghami, a person who's currently not with us, but who stayed with Anghami for roughly 8 years, and who've built a lot in Anghami, uh, had no graduate degree. I mean, honestly, they had no graduate degree. So for now, I mean, I simply I think I answered that before. I value, the right worth of people. So right now, for instance, if an engineer is applying to Anghami, we don't look at where he's coming from. We do interviews. We look at the code of his GitHub, for instance, if he provides one, when we really want one, and uh, and we create code challenges, and based on this, we'll eventually going to look at where he's coming from when we recruit him at the final stage. He might be coming from ADU, he might be coming from a different university. I truly try to favor smart people. I mean, we do have a lot of LAU graduates, and clearly, I mean, I'm happy to see that, but we favor smart people.
That's good to hear. Interesting. Um, Going back to your business model, Fadi is asking, how did you understand what the customer wants?
We listened a lot. We clearly had our own ideas at the beginning, and we thought we knew what the customer wants. But the question is, Fadi, is what the customer wants in the right city, in the different mindset. Because right now, as Lebanese, we Lebanon is a lab and has always been a great lab for us, where we can test ideas and validate. But Lebanon does not represent the Middle East as large, right? I mean, Dubai does not represent the Middle East at large, because it's 70%, non-Arabs. I mean, more than 70% non-Arabs, 70% from Southeast Asian in Dubai, for instance. So we realized that early on that we needed to actually listen to the person, to the people in their own different contexts. So what would as an example, what would a Saudi person do in the morning? Because that same Saudi person would do something very different at night. And it's exactly someone in Lebanon, for instance, might want to start his day with Fairuz and end his days with I don't know, French Montana, whatever. So as just an example, so it would really want to understand how would that guy that listening to a lot of rap music is actually listening to Rashid Al-Majid at the same time. So it would be quite, confusing, and we would not be able to understand that and guess that unless we actually talk to our user base and get. I remember early on, what we did to understand our user base was really sending a few people to campuses in Beirut and universities and simply trying to talk to students, trying to watch them using Anghami, trying to understand what they're doing and what they're searching for and how they behave. And then we realized that, we had to build a lot of machine learning to scale all of those learnings. So a person who actually starts his day by working out would listen to certain type of music that would be very different from a person that starts his day at home at Wi-Fi, because probably that guy is listening to coffee in the morning. Sorry, is drinking coffee while listening to music. So that is two different personas. So Wi-Fi would indicate something different than someone that is running, because the phone would indicate to us that this person is running. So he would be consuming totally different type of music. So obviously you would get to a lot of personas and a lot of segmentation to answer that. So there isn't one person. There are a lot of segmentation, a lot of personas. That's why you'd end up having, music DNA, and, that would define what a person like and what a person dislikes and how, he behaves. And a lot of that can't be one persona. That's millions of personas that we need to cater for.
Thank you. Many questions, I think, I'm assuming they are coming from young entrepreneurs. They are asking, how do you deal with discouragement and failure? Remember, we live in Lebanon. Um, how did you deal with this, and how would you recommend that they deal with it?
So honestly, I've been very familiar with failure, from the beginning, and that is great. One thing that I mentioned to someone the other day was like, I'm searching for people who failed, right? I'm not interested to work with people who've only succeeded. A failure is an important thing that I search for. I want people who've done 10 things and failed nine, right? People who've done one and failed one have, probably not the right persons who I want to work with. And that actually, switching that same question to you is like, those discouragement actually should be the way whereby you would want to prove yourself, whereby you would want to say, okay, let me understand, let me take the feedback of that person to figure out why he's saying that and how can I actually, answer him, and or actually, or maybe try to validate whether maybe he's right, maybe there's something right with what the person is discouraging me about, or maybe there's something that I actually need to figure out and solve. So when we started Anghami and people were discouraging me to build a company around music, it was because most of the time they were telling me that Apple is building a music service, and they had iTunes, and you should not compete with that. At the time, that was not a discouragement for me, because I totally understood at the time that asking someone to buy a song at $1, like Apple was doing in 2010, was not a business model that makes sense in the region. So I totally realized that even though it was Apple and they were big, they were not focused exactly on emerging market, did not understand our region, and we could still do something around that. But I had to actually take that and understand that it was about revenue. And that's why when I told you it wasn't about the idea only, but it was the business model. And so we understood that if you actually create an idea that would generate revenue from day one, and that would labels be adhered to, artists would adhere to, but also would allow us to generate some sort of revenue by dealing with telcos, then I would have answered the concern of the people who wouldn't want to build, put money with us at the beginning. And it's fair. They thought Apple is going to eat us, but at the end, we honestly did not feel much from Apple per se. We felt from others, but basically we solved the problem at the beginning. It's fine if you take the input of someone and try to understand the why of the input and trying to solve it. So for us, it was, understanding by failing, while building, and at the same time iterating. So when I say iterating, it's very important. I think someone said that is like trying to not build a building, but trying to build one floor and see if people would go through it. If whatever I'm building works for that segment, if it works, build on top of it. If it doesn't work, then take it down and build something else, and be clear with yourself that it's fine, that we want to build by learning. And that is the lesson that I keep giving to my team. It's okay if we try stuff and if we fail sometimes, but if it's wrong that we don't take the lessons of the failure. And failure is not supposed to be a stigma. Failure is supposed to be a lesson.
You reminded me of the saying, I fall 7 times, I stand up 8 times.
Exactly. That's why people who know those lessons, uh, uh, you know, uh, are better, better team members for me.
Eli, a question from Elio. Where do you see podcasting in Lebanon and the Arab region? And do you have any plans related to this?
Yeah, of course. Uh, Great questions. I mean, podcasting is still at the beginnings in the region, despite the hype and everything. Uh, pri- we're late across so many things in the Middle East, which is fine. Being late in the region means that you have a superpower. You can see what trends happen abroad, and you realize that those trends will come to the region at the right time if they have the right infrastructure. So we've been investing in podcasts. We've invested in a few podcasts already as a trial, and what for us makes sense for now is simply investing to create attention to, so people would understand what is a podcast. For me, a podcast is just an audio show. It's just a conversation like we're having right now. You could be listening to that conversation right now on the radio and would still make sense for you. Uh, and that's why we've built live radio. Live radio is simply allows anybody to create, a radio show. And the radio show is a mix from, discussions, people talking, multiple, like now, me and Charbil are discussing and we're getting questions from the audience, and all of that could be done in live radio right now. And we could be playing also music, right, if it's relevant, because that's what you have on your radio most of the time, a lot of music and some discussions. We believe that the in model of the podcast, by calling it podcast, means that a lot of people would need time to understand what is a podcast. But if I call it a radio show, or it's clear, everybody knows what is a radio show. And we're investing in it in terms of creation, in terms of partnership, and in terms of creating it in a different format. Live radio will show that in the next few months. Thank you for the question.
Eli, what do you advise the young people who have ideas, but they don't have the technical background? They are not computer scientists, nor engineers, nor programmers. What can they do about those ideas in tech?
Uh, It's like clearly not everybody needs to be a coder. Not everybody, you know, can can build, an idea from scratch. But you need a community. And what befuddles me in the region at large, and in Lebanon especially, is that every three people want to create a startup, whereby I think, though, I mean, if those mixed, I mean, multiple teams of three people can create a great company, not a small startup. Basically, if we work together, right? Some people have, the tech talent, but they lack total business sense. I mean, they want to build something because it's some new tech innovation, but that they don't know how they're going to generate revenue out of it. And a lot of the times they read stories about someone like Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, and they say if those guys didn't do and they do it, so they did it, so we're going to do something like that. Those are exceptions, and those exceptions happen 1 in a billion. And most of the time, you need someone who knows how to build with someone who has business sense, and you can mix both of them. I would not have built Anghami if it wasn't for Eddie, and Eddie would not have built Anghami if it wasn't for me. So that mixture is important. So guys, my answer over here, it work together. Probably on your right hand side or left hand side, there is someone who actually has, the knowledge of how to build, but does not have ideas or does not have a business sense. If we all work together, and that's generally as a message for the Lebanese society at large, because I see people, that most of the time do not know how to work together, and most of the time it's because of the ego, the same thing that you mentioned earlier, and that people get astonished why you as a founder aren't highlighted or whatever. And if we don't have ego, if we all work together at large, our society in Lebanon will be better. It's because we all want to work separately that we end up having a certain society that doesn't work sometimes. And I'm not into politics. I'm just into society, and I've learned a lot of that. And the lesson for me is always to to just simply look at people in the room and trying to build, to get the best out of the people. So Anghami was built simply because there were people who were better at me in music, were better at me in social, were better at me in marketing, were better at me in tech and in building and in payment and in whatever. So just assemble the right group and you can build it.
Eli, I could go on forever, but I think we'll extend only till 6:10. So I have 3 minutes and I'm targeting three questions only, important questions. The first one, you mentioned politics. I don't want to tackle politics, but where has Lebanon disappointed you and where has it supported you? And what do you think the ecosystem for startups needs right now in Lebanon? What's the top three things that it needs?
Uh, okay. So the first question, I mean, in terms of how Lebanon has supported me, it's by the people, right? Lebanon, the only thing that supported us, like the people that we got the opportunity to build Anghami with, is what supported me, and it acted as a lab, and it helped me, build Anghami from here to the world. I'm so thankful from this. Clearly, in terms of government or everything else, I mean, I don't want any support. I did not ask for any support. We got a few, a bit, but not that important. Unfortunately, we got much more support from abroad than from Lebanon, from particularly most governments or most entities outside, which is fine, which is a lesson for us at the same time. But let's go back to the second question, which is something that's dear to me. I think again, working together, it's what lacks us. What is the biggest problem that we have, and two is the lack in R&D. I see a lot of money being invested. I mean, not today per se, but over the past few years, a lot of money has been invested in startups in Lebanon, with most of it not showing in anywhere, right? Because the idea of having 2 3 people and giving them a seed capital or a series A, whatever, and expecting them to create a great startup does not make sense anymore, right? I mean, we need to invest in R&D, and that is great because I'm talking to a university right now. Having a small R&D fund whereby people are expected to come up with innovative ideas that eventually a startup could market it, would make the most sense for me. And I've been actually clamoring for just a bit of capital for that. I don't want to invest in just a startup that is doing something else. I want to invest in innovation. And to do that, it's like, the someone that want to have a garden, he does not expect to plant seeds and get those seeds becoming fruits and be sold in the market within the next 6 months or 12 months, or get an ROI within the next 2 years. Generally speaking, you plant a tree and you wait years for it to grow and to get the outcome out of it and to be able to sell. And that's exactly the same thing, to plan the right startup, to plan the right company that will actually grow from Lebanon to the world, hopefully. And maybe they would start from an idea from Lebanon directly to the US without going to the Middle East as large. We'll really need to invest in innovation, and we really need to learn to work together to really harness what's best in everyone and every company that's available in Lebanon so we can create the next big thing. So, I mean, if we actually collaborate, start by collaborating together and start by investing in our youth, because that's honestly what we still have today in Lebanon. I mean, we can get to somewhere. Just put in money for research. Don't put in money to spend on Facebook ads, because that's what most companies end up doing in Lebanon, and that is not going to build a business.
That's very insightful indeed. Um, Elie, very quickly, you mentioned at some point early on that books have helped you in the early days. What is the one book you would recommend the audience to read tonight?
It's hard to focus on just one book, but if it was one book, it's Loon Shots of Sari Bakal. Uh, it's loon, not moonshots. It's with an L. It's like moon, but loon shots. It's a great book, and if I had to pick just one, let it be that book.
Okay, the second then.
The hard thing about hard things, the hard things about hard things by Ben Horowitz. And I would also, since I'm giving two, no, I mean, let me give the third book, which is the book by Reed Hastings, the founder of Netflix. It's called No Rules Rules.
I like the name. Uh,
Okay.
Elie, my concluding question. We are a university here. That's LAU. That's your alma mater. What what are the, let's say, not top one, but top three or even top five skill sets that you would advise the young students to focus on and that the university does not really provide if they want to work on their personal development? In which areas do you recommend they do so?
I mean, honestly, I'll look at simply the people that I respect that work with me and take that. Um, I I think curiosity is really essential. You know, being able to understand something and deconstruct it and understand the why of the thing. A lot of the times, when I'm doing interviews, and I think I've interviewed thousands of people, and for me, when I start interviewing someone and I try to ask him the why of something or how something that he uses works, most of the time people do not know. They take assumptions. They know that this works that way, but they never question the why of the thing. And I honestly think that is what will, get me stopping the interview, not continuing, not on, because I'm genuinely interested in working with people, and I believe this is exactly what makes a successful person from non-successful is he understands his tools and understands the why of the things that he's working in. So basically, when I interviewing, let's say, an engineer or a marketeer, that person has learned the same thing as the next 30 people that were in the same class. I'm not interested with what he learned in the class or in the university. I'm interested in his extracurricular activities that led him to actually dig into something, trying to understand the why of it, because some professor discussed or mentioned something and he went after it and he tried to understand. That creates the really raw talent that enables me to really work with people, and not because of me, but because of the lessons that I've learned. Every successful person that I've worked with in Anghami has been the curious person that want to understand the why, that does not take a thing that, okay, I mean, do X and he's going to go do it. He's going to only understand the why are we doing it, and trying to deconstruct it and trying to figure out how I'm going to do better. And that challenging aspect is the only thing that is important. You don't need five things. If you take this, that will lead you to actually build a lot, right? And trying to understand that you don't follow a person, you actually follow an idea. And that is exactly what, one of the biggest problem we have in Lebanon. And again, no politics to it. Just figure out the why, the idea, and then build upon it. And you'll figure out what you want. You figure out what you're good at, and you figure out how you can sell yourself as the best person who can do something. And I was never afraid of, working in any particular, uh, you know, market, because I said, I'm going to fail. And I knew that I'm going to fail at something, but I always knew that that failure is going to be good to me. I'm going to learn from it and going to be better out of it. And I'm going to eventually understand the why that I failed and how I'm going to do better the next time. If anyone can actually be content enough to understand that he's going to, he's going to fail, he's going to have house of cards fail across sometimes, but he's going to be stand up and then figure out how to build another one. And that actually, while learning how the previous house failed, that that is the only thing that we need to know. And just figure out that how you put your ego aside, build again, and grow. And that is called experience, guys. That is called experience eventually. And that is what builds companies. And it's not just one thing, two things. It's like all of those lessons that we all build together. That's why if you focus on a team of people, everyone who's good at something, and we work together egoless, you're going to build the next big company. And that's exactly what all of the, big companies, the great companies were built of. Sometimes the story goes back to one person, but it's never about one person. It's about a group of believers into something that had big dreams, but also understand that those big dreams will take a lot of work, a lot of passion, a lot of sweat, and a lot of failures. And eventually, something will work.
Thank you very much, Elie. Um, I could really go on, but we really have to put a stop to this. First, I would like to apologize for all the attendees whose questions I did not cater to. I have a handful of questions. I even have my questions that I did not ask. So I'm really, really sorry. It's 6:17. Elie, I want to thank you very much for this very insightful talk. I enjoyed it so much. I'm looking forward for another one, actually. We owe this to the audience, especially that there are questions unanswered. I thank you again, and I look forward for the next time. Abdullah, Saad, any
There is always something new with Eddie. Every week there's something new. So I think we can have a webinar
Thank you,
on a
everyone.
monthly basis. Every month we can have. Eddie, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I mean, much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Saad, Ali, Robert is responsible for this webinar. If it wasn't for him,
Thank
we
you,
wouldn't
Robert.
have had this webinar. Thank you so much, Robert Khairallah. Fantastic. All of you
All right.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
We will
Bye-bye.
keep in touch.
Bye
And the
bye.
Thank you,
audience,
Akid.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
bye.
Bye.